It's late again, isn't it? You're lying there in the dark, wrapped in silence or something close to it. The world around you has gone still, but your thoughts haven't. They tug at you softly, or maybe sharply. Things you didn't finish, conversations that never quite settled, feelings with no labels, questions with no answers. Maybe it's anxiety or ADHD spinning its wheels. Maybe it's something heavier, grief that's taken up quiet residence in your chest, or just the gentle ache of loneliness that always seems louder after midnight. Whatever you're feeling tonight, you're not alone, and you don't need to fix yourself to rest. You just need space to breathe, to soften, to drift. So tonight, let's go back, way, way back, before phones, before books, before clocks, coins, countries, or written language, before soap, before chairs, to a world shaped by stone silence and survival, to a time when jewelry wasn't gold, it was bones, teeth, claws, shells. It didn't sparkle, it rattled. It didn't sit in velvet boxes. It was worn on sinew cords, close to the skin, smelling of smoke and earth. You open your eyes. You're lying on cold-packed dirt inside a round shelter made of hides and branches. The air is thick with the scent of fire and dried meat. Your blanket is a fur, stiff in places, soft in others. There's a weight around your neck, familiar, tapping against your collarbone as you shift. You sit up and it sways gently. A necklace, strung together with leather cord worn smooth from years of touch, bits of bone, tiny notched stones, a chipped tooth, possibly human, and a claw curved, yellowed, once belonging to something that once could have killed you. But it didn't. And now, part of it lives with you, as decoration, as memory, as something more. You reach up and touch each piece, not for beauty, not for fashion, but because each one means something. This one, your first hunt. This one, a gift from someone you don't speak of anymore. This one, worn smooth from years of rubbing between your fingers when you were scared or thinking or just still. This necklace isn't about status. It's about story. It's about identity in a time when names weren't written, only remembered. Outside the hut, the sun is rising. Orange light filters through the cracks. You hear footsteps crunching frost. Someone is calling softly. Time to gather, time to move, time to face another day. But for this moment, you're still. The fire beside you pops gently. Smoke trails upward. Your breath is slow, and the necklace rests quietly on your skin, as if it remembers everything you've forgotten. If this voice is helping you feel more grounded, more calm, you're welcome to like or subscribe, only if it brings you peace. No pressure here, just presence. So, where are you right now? Are you under a blanket, phone, tilted slightly to one side? Earbuds in just one ear? Is your room dark? Or are you letting the soft glow of the screen be your only light? Is your mind still restless? Or is it beginning, just beginning to soften around the edges? Whatever shape your night has taken, it's okay. You don't need to be anywhere else. You don't need to be anyone else. Take a breath. Unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders drop. Let the past hour, the past year, fall away just for now. Tonight we'll travel through time using fragments, bones, teeth, beads worn by hands long gone, jewelry made by people who never said the word jewelry, people who carved meaning from what was left behind. Let's begin. Hey guys, tonight we're digging in the dirt literally. You're wandering across a wide open plain, the kind where the wind doesn't whistle. It shoves. Your legs ache from walking. Your shoulders are tense and your feet are coated in dry dust. You're not searching for anything. Not really. You're just letting your feet take you. The horizon is flat and silent, and the only thing keeping you company is the soft crunch of grass underfoot and the rhythmic beating of your own breath. Then it catches your eye, a glint in the soil. Something pale and oddly shaped pokes out beside a stone just barely visible under a smear of brown earth. You crouch down and brush away the dirt. It's not shiny like a coin or a bottle cap. It's duller, smoother. A small tube of bone perfectly pierced through its center like someone had taken the time to drill it by hand. It's light but solid, ancient but unmistakably intentional. You've just found a piece of prehistoric jewelry. It's not gold or diamond. There's no sparkle. But there's something oddly powerful about it, knowing you're holding a trinket that once meant something to someone who had no idea what the word trinket even meant. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As you continue walking the sky above, you darken slightly. The landscape shifts. The trees get smaller. The grass grows thinner. You're slipping backward through time gently, like falling into a warm bath filled with wood smoke and mammoth hair. You blink, and suddenly you're standing on the edge of a camp, but not a modern one. No tents, no nylon, no coolers, full of soda. This camp is older, cruder, more fragrant. The people here squat near fires, their bodies wrapped in fur, their hands busy with flint and hide. Children chase each other barefoot over the earth, and the smell of roasted meat and unwashed skin hangs heavy in the air. No one seems surprised to see you. A woman with silver streaks in her long braided hair beckons you forward. She's dressed in a tunic made of stitched animal skins, and around her neck is a cord strung with beads. Not pretty glass ones, though. These are small bones, bird bones maybe, and each has been rubbed smooth dyed with what looks like red clay. She gestures for your hand. You hold it out. She places her necklace over your head. Congratulations. You've just been accessorized by a Paleolithic fashionista. Historians still argue whether prehistoric jewelry like this was everyday wear or reserved for rituals. Some claim it served magical or spiritual purposes, maybe to protect the wearer from harm, maybe to channel the spirit of the animal it came from. Others believe it signified status or tribe, like a prehistoric membership badge. You notice others in the camp wearing their own versions. One boy has a necklace made of fox teeth. Another wears a bracelet made of carved shells, each one polished to a shine. Even the toddler, waddling near the fire, has a piece of carved antler tied around his belly, like a lucky charm. The materials vary: bones, teeth, claws, stones, even the occasional shell. Nothing is wasted. Everything that dies becomes something to wear. You sit beside a girl who's threading beads onto a cord of sinew. She grunts as one slips from her fingers and lands in the dirt. You help her pick it up. It's slick with fat, probably to make threading easier. She nods in thanks and keeps working. You watch her movements. She's quick but deliberate, twisting the cord, rubbing the bead, checking it for flaws. You wonder how long it takes to make a full necklace. Hours, days. Does she gift it to someone? Wear it herself? Bury it with a loved one? There's no way to know. Not far from you, a man crouches with a stone in one hand and a chunk of bone in the other. He's carving tiny grooves with slow, practiced strokes, his tongue pressed into his cheek, like a sculptor lost in concentration. This is art. It just smells a little more like rotting elk than we're used to. You move toward a fire where several older women are grinding red ochre into powder on a flat rock. One of them dips her fingers in and stains the beads beside her. It gives them a rusty hue. Some archaeologists believe this red powder symbolized life, or blood, or fertility. Others suggest it was simply decorative, or maybe it was both. Historians still debate the exact meaning of ochre use in early burials, especially when it shows up in graves next to pierced beads. But you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about the texture of the powder, the way it clings to the skin, like it wants to be remembered. Near the edge of the camp, you spot a pile of broken beads, some cracked, some chipped, some with holes that didn't quite pierce all the way through. Jewelry fails sometimes, even 30,000 years ago. Suddenly there's a commotion. A man walks into camp with something slung over his shoulders, a fresh kill. The people crowd around him, clapping, shouting, patting his back. He drops the animal near the fire. A wild boar, maybe. Hard to tell, it's still twitching. But what catches your eye is what hangs from the man's own neck. A tooth, not animal. Human. Maybe a family member. Maybe an enemy. Maybe you stop wondering. You sit back down and run your fingers over the bead still in your pocket. It's smooth now, from the warmth of your hand. You don't know who made it, or who wore it, or why they left it behind. But you do know this: long before diamonds and gold, long before jewelers and brands, long before hashtags and hauls, there was this: a single piece of bone, threaded with meaning, worn close to the heart. You wake, or maybe you never really slept beside the same smoky fire pit. The early morning light is watery and thin, barely strong enough to cut through the veil of last night's embers. A low fog snakes through the camp, weaving between bodies wrapped in fur and limbs sprawled in careless, prehistoric exhaustion. You blink slowly, the way people do when they're not quite ready to move. But something draws your attention. A dull thunk, then another, rhythmic, deliberate. You roll to your side, and there she is again, the girl with the red-stained fingers, still working. Or maybe she started again after a short nap. Or maybe she never stopped. Her back is to you now, and she's hunched over something bone stone, or both. You shuffle over quietly. No one in this timeline wears slippers. You crouch beside her, and for a few seconds you just watch. She holds a long curved tool, a piece of antler sharpened at the tip. In her other hand, a chunk of something yellowish and solid. It takes you a second to realize it's a tooth, a big one, boar maybe, or something larger. She presses, twists, grinds, not like she's decorating it, but like she's trying to make it yield. What she's doing, in essence, is crafting identity. It's easy to forget in your warm apartment filled with IKEA things and LED lighting that people once poured days of effort into a single object they might wear only once or bury with someone else forever. But here, the investment is the point. The more effort she puts into this piece, the more meaning it carries. You hear others beginning to stir. One man coughs like he's dislodging an entire season's worth of smoke from his lungs. A child whimpers. A fire is coaxed back to life with the soft encouragement of sticks and breath. And through it all, tap, tap, scrape. She keeps working. Historians still argue whether this kind of craftsmanship was specialized. Were there designated artists in these ancient camps? Was she the jewelry maker, while someone else made the spears and another tanned the hides? Or did everyone just make what they needed when they needed it, passing along skills in a kind of communal apprenticeship that had no final exam? You look down at her work again. She's finally punched through the center of the tooth. She grunts in satisfaction, then picks up a string of sinew already half covered in other beads. Each one is different. A story maybe, a memory, a trophy. And here comes the next chapter. You sit quietly as she threads the new piece on. She doesn't smile, but you can tell she's proud. A boy nearby stands, stretches, and tosses a fur over his shoulder. He wears a single pendant, just one. It's a polished shell, impossibly smooth, like it spent years tumbling in river currents before anyone thought to turn it into something beautiful. He catches your gaze, touches the pendant, then points toward the horizon. Time to walk, because this isn't a stationary life. You travel with the group for hours, through grass that brushes your knees and mud that clings to your ankles. You pass trees that are twisted like old knuckles, and boulders that look like they might get up and walk away if left alone too long. The smell of sweat mingles with animal grease. You're tired, hungry, maybe slightly allergic to the air. But still there's something hypnotic about it. You're moving with people who carry their memories around their necks, who wear their histories like armor, who adorn themselves, not to impress, but to remember. A woman ahead of you has a necklace made entirely of teeth. They clack as she walks, like tiny castanets, announcing her presence. Some are human, most are not. She doesn't seem concerned with symmetry, or matching, or anything your modern fashion sense would understand. But it works. It's like she's saying, "This is what I've survived." At night, when the group makes camp again, someone tells a story. Not with words you understand. There are no subtitles in the Pleistocene, but with gestures. She touches each bead as she speaks, points at the sky, then the ground, then places a small stone in the palm of a child. A lesson, a warning. You don't know. But the child nods solemnly, like they've just been handed a piece of the universe. Later, after a dinner of something chewy and alarmingly unseasoned, you sit beside the older woman again. She picks up a necklace she's been working on, a chaotic arrangement of bones, teeth, and small stones. She adds a feather, just one, ties it to the bottom, letting it hang like a question mark. Historians still don't know why feathers were sometimes added to these early ornaments. Some think they symbolized flight freedom or a connection to the spirit world. Others argue it was more mundane, just pretty and light and there. But under the firelight, that one feather sways, soft, delicate, fragile, and somehow, in a world where everything is rough and sharp and loud, that makes it the most powerful symbol of all. You close your eyes for a moment. The fire crackles. Someone snores. A bead drops into the dirt with a tiny musical thunk. You think of your own life, your keepsakes, the things you wear, the memories you carry. Maybe we're not so different. Maybe we just replace teeth with silver. The morning fog clears as the sun yawns over the hills, revealing more than just silhouettes and shapes. In the haze, it reveals a world still young and somehow already full of stories. You stretch your stiff limbs, feeling the soreness of sleeping on rough ground. No mattress, no pillow, just a bed of leaves and dirt that smells faintly of smoke and damp, woolly mammoth. The group begins to move again. You fall in with them, not questioning where you're going. No one really seems to know. Or maybe they do, but they aren't telling. As you walk, you find yourself near an older man. His gait is uneven, and his back is curved like a question mark. But he walks with a purpose, and around his neck a series of small, smooth stones, each one pierced with the same kind of precision you saw yesterday. They're not particularly pretty. In fact, one of them looks suspiciously like a chunk of river rock you'd use to hold down a napkin at a windy picnic. But they mean something. You can tell by the way he touches them occasionally, like they're reminders. Of what, though? Victories, deaths, sunrises that didn't kill anyone. Historians still argue whether these early necklaces were personal diaries or tribal banners. Some suggest they were maps coated with memories of where the group had been, what they'd seen, who they'd lost. Others think they were spiritual, helping connect the wearer to ancestors or forces unseen. You lean in closer, curious. The man notices. He lifts a bead towards you, holds it between thumb and forefinger, then taps his chest. You blink. He nods once and walks on. The bead. You realize now it's not a rock. It's petrified wood. A tiny fragment of something that once lived turned to stone over millennia. Not just a memory, but a fossilized story, hardened by time and pressure, and he carries it like a part of his body. As the sun climbs higher, the group pauses near a river. The water glints silver and blue, carving its way through rock, like it's late for something. People scatter some to wash, some to drink, others to dig around in the shallows. You join them, stepping carefully over slick stones. You spot a young woman, barely older than a girl, who's squatting near the water's edge. She dips her hand in, feels around, then pulls up something small, a shell. She inspects it, rubs it between her fingers, and smiles. You watch as she pulls a small flint blade from a pouch and begins to scrape at the edge of the shell. She's not carving a masterpiece. She's making a hole. Her hands move like she's done this 1,000 times before. You wonder how many necklaces she's made, or how many she's worn. You hear someone nearby mutter. You turn. A boy is holding up a fish, small, twitching its scales, catching the sun like armor. He grins, triumphant. But your attention is caught by what's dangling from his wrist. A bracelet. It's braided from sinew, or maybe plant fibers, and in the center sits a bead that looks out of place. It's not bone, not shell. It gleams faintly. Metal, numb, too early for that. But it is strange. Historians still debate whether prehistoric peoples traded for unusual materials across great distances. Some finds like Mediterranean shells, buried far inland, or Baltic amber, found hundreds of miles from its source, suggest they did. Others argue that such objects drifted through generations, passed like stories from one fire to another. Whatever the truth, that bracelet tells a tale. And the boy, he just wants you to admire the fish. As the sun reaches its zenith, the camp settles under a tree canopy. Leaves rustle, insects drone, and someone snores far too loudly for a world without walls. You sit with a small group who are passing objects around. No words, just fingers, nods, and shared looks. claw, a carved tooth, a smooth red pebble. Each item is handled like it's both sacred and casual, reverent but familiar. It hits you then. These things, the necklaces, the beads, the bracelets, they're not just decorations. They're language. You begin to notice more. One man wears only blackened beads scorched by fire or soot, a sign of grief, of survival. A child wears bright white shells that catch the light like smiles. A woman carries a necklace so long it wraps twice around her neck and still dangles to her waist. You imagine the weight of it physically and emotionally. You touch your own neck out of habit. Nothing there, just skin. The group shares a meal, roots, nuts, something roasted that tastes mostly of smoke and maybe regret. You chew slowly and listen. Someone is humming a low, soft rhythm, repetitive, hypnotic. It grows subtly, and others join in. Not words, just sound. It pulses like the river, like breath, like time. And around necks and wrists, the beads sway, somewhere between a dance and a trance. You close your eyes. The song wraps around you like a necklace of air. You feel your heartbeat slow, and then silence. A woman opens her palm and reveals a single bead, oval, polished, pierced. She holds it to her lips, then hands it to you. You take it. It's warm. You look at her confused. She smiles and gestures to your chest. Add it to your story. The bead sits in your hand longer than you expect. It's heavier than it looks, which is weird because you're fairly certain it's just some kind of polished stone. Still, you keep flipping it between your fingers like it might whisper something if you give it enough time. By now, the camp is moving again. Not in a hurry, but with that same sense of quiet purpose, like they're following an invisible trail that you can't see, but everyone else can. You tuck the bead into a fold of your furs, or maybe your metaphorical backpack of modern existential dread, and fall into step. As you walk, you start paying attention to necks, wrists, belts, even hair. Everyone's wearing something, not always pretty, not always symmetrical, but always intentional. A teenage girl has knotted bird bones into her braids. A man with more wrinkles than skin, left unwrinkled, has a strip of leather covered in what looked like carved teeth. Not human, you think. Too thin. Maybe dog-wolf historians still argue about whether prehistoric dogs were pets or work animals, or some chaotic blend of both. There is evidence of burial sites where dogs were laid to rest beside humans, even covered in red ochre and shell beads. Was it love or just logistics? You imagine this man whistling at his long-gone companion the way we do today without thinking. But there are no whistles here, only wind and breath, and the occasional groan of a tree leaning too far in a storm. You squint at his necklace again. The bones are carved, not just holes bored through, but actual patterns, lines, dots. One even looks like a spiral. This wasn't just utility. This was effort. Which brings you to a new realization prehistoric people had. Time. Not always. Not in abundance. But enough to sit down with a bone and a sharp flake and go, let's make this special. There's a strange kind of comfort in that. That even when survival was your full-time job, there was still room for art. The group stops again, this time near a cluster of low trees. Not quite a forest, more like a polite collection of trees, trying not to get in the way. A few of the men break off to scout, or hunt, or possibly just get away from their kids for 10 minutes. And you find yourself drifting toward a smaller gathering at the edge of the clearing. They're sitting in a circle. In the center is a young woman with several small objects laid out on a tanned hide stones, shells, bones, teeth, maybe even a couple pieces of antler. You can tell by the way everyone watches her that she's not just making jewelry. She's performing. Her fingers move quickly. She picks up a sharp flake of obsidian and begins to carve into a flat piece of bone. No sketches, no drafts, just movement. Confident and fluid, she's etching. What exactly? You're not sure. The lines seem abstract at first, but then you start to recognize patterns, swirls, zigzags, maybe even a tree. It hits you. This is memory. She's recording something, not on paper, not in code, but in art. And when she's done, she threads the piece onto a cord and holds it up for the group to see. They nod. One man claps softly. A child points and whispers. You don't speak the language, but the meaning is clear. That bone will be worn, passed, maybe even buried. But for now, it's a chapter in a story that only this group can read. You wonder how many stories were lost, how many necklaces dissolved into soil, how many symbols were never translated, how much knowledge was worn around necks and wrists and ears, and then forgotten when those necks and wrists and ears turn into dust. A man beside you clears his throat and taps his own chest. You glance over. His necklace is long and cluttered. Too many pieces to count, and no consistent theme. Shells next to teeth bones, next to smoothed stones, bits of charcoal, and maybe even a claw or two. You look up at him. He grins, then points to the objects one by one. Each tap comes with a gesture toward the forest, the river, the sky, then toward the camp, then toward the circle. He's telling you where each piece came from. A map, a calendar, a scrapbook, all hanging from a cord. Historians still puzzle over the emotional weight of prehistoric adornment. Was it sacred, decorative, practical? Probably all of the above. You wonder if this man feels naked without it. Later that day, while the others are preparing food, you sneak away to a small ridge overlooking the river. The bead you were given earlier sits in your palm again. You hold it up to the sky. It catches the light. You think of the woman who gave it to you, the look in her eyes, the unspoken instruction. You reach down, grab a strip of sinew from your bag, or maybe your dream logic supplies one on cue, and thread the bead through. Tie it loosely around your neck, It feels right. You're not from here, but now you belong. Sort of. Someone calls your name, which is strange because no one here knows your name. You head back anyway. Necklaces swing. Beads clack. Teeth grin. Another day closes in the age before memory, and you wear it now. The sun is lowering again, and shadows stretch long across the trampled grass. You're sitting by the fire which pops and hisses as if it has its own prehistoric language. The heat licks at your cheeks. Your necklace, the one with that bead, rests softly against your collarbone. Funny how fast something becomes part of you. Beside you, an old woman is threading sinew through what appears to be a bird's toe bone. She's muttering under her breath, not in anger, not in song, but in rhythm. A personal metronome, perhaps. She wears layers of beads, not on one strand, but on many, some slung around her shoulders, others woven through her hair. From a distance, she looks almost regal. Up close, she smells of smoke, sweat, and wild sage. She catches you looking. Her eyes are foggy with age, but not unseeing. She picks up one necklace, a heavy, uneven loop of brown and gray bits, and places it in your hands. You turn it slowly, letting your fingers glide over the irregular surfaces. One bead is smooth and cold. Another is porous and jagged. One smells faintly of river mud. Another hums with a strange kind of polish, almost too shiny. Then you see it. A human tooth, definitely human. You try not to flinch. Historians still argue whether human remains were used in jewelry for spiritual reasons, as memorials, or simply for lack of better options. Some suggest they were trophies, tokens of respect, or even warnings. Others lean toward the practical. If it's hard and small and has a hole in it, well, wear it. The old woman grins, revealing several gaps of her own. She taps the tooth, and then her heart. Her expression softens. Not a threat. A keepsake. You hand it back with reverence, and she nods. The conversation ends without words. As darkness rolls in, torches are lit. Not because they need light. Prehistoric folks, it turns out, can see surprisingly well in the dark, but because fire is comforting. It flickers across the necklaces, casting little glowing beads of shadow across people's chests. Around the fire, stories begin, not told with language, but through pantomime, gesture, expression. You're watching a young man reenact a hunt when you notice his necklace. It's strung with flat oval objects. Fish, vertebrae. No, those are vertebrae, but not fish. They're too big, too consistent. You stare until the firelight hits them just right. Snake. An entire snake skeleton, bead by bead, wrapping around his neck like the echo of danger tamed. You wonder, was it something he killed? Something he feared? Something sacred? Historians still debate whether wearing animal parts meant invoking their spirit, their power, or simply proving you weren't afraid to tangle with them. Did the necklace say, I survived the snake? Or was it more like the snake watches over me? Depends on which museum curator you ask and how well they slept that week. As the crowd laughs at the climax of the story, a wildly exaggerated spear throw you, pull your furs tighter. You're beginning to feel the layers of these people, the deeper truths tucked inside simple shapes. Every necklace, bracelet, or bead is like a line in a diary you weren't supposed to read, but now can't stop thinking about. You glance at your own bead again. It's not the prettiest, but it's yours now. It traveled firelight and stories and hands to get to you. Later that night, you lie on your back staring at stars. No light pollution here, just an endless dome of pinpricks, indifferent and ancient. Someone hums nearby, same tune from the other night. You think you've almost learned it. You close your eyes and drift into another memory not your own. When morning comes, something is different. A visitor has arrived. He's older than most of the others, his beard nearly white, his shoulders bent but broad. He wears a cloak of something shaggy thick and vaguely smelly. And around his neck, nothing. That's what stands out. No beads, no teeth, no shells, no string, just bare skin. You're puzzled until he kneels by the fire, pulls something from a pouch, and begins laying it out. Bones, feathers, smooth stones. Each object looks not rare exactly, but deliberate, like he chose them not for beauty, but for story. He's not wearing his past. He's building it piece by piece in front of everyone. The others gather silently like students around a chalkboard. He picks up each object and taps it gently against a stone, making a sound, a chime, a click, a dull thunk. Then he arranges them into a circle, a ritual, a memory game, jewelry in progress. No one speaks. You lean in. He holds up one bead, small, round, and carved with a spiral. Then, with a hand that trembles slightly, he threads it onto a thin strip of sinew. Slowly, like the act itself has weight. He continues, a stone, a tooth, a feather, each one carefully added. This is no fashion show. It's autobiography. Historians still wonder whether some necklaces were assembled over decades, one bead per life event. Birth, hunt, death, fire, love, storm, regret. No documentation, no archives, just loops around your neck, telling whoever asks, here's where I've been. The man finishes, ties the ends and lifts it high. Then, unexpectedly, he places it around the neck of a small child, barely walking. The crowd murmurs approval. A gift, a legacy, a start. You glance at your own. You're no longer just watching this world. You're wearing it. The necklace around your neck feels a little heavier now. Not physically, it's still just a bead and a cord, but symbolically. You've seen what these things mean. How a single object worn close to the skin can hold entire lifetimes. It's not jewelry. It's autobiography, etched and strung, one memory at a time. The morning stretches wide and golden as the camp begins to move again. You follow feet crunching over frost-laced grass, the sun not yet strong enough to melt the night's breath. As you walk, you notice more of them now. Those little clinks, those dangling tokens swinging gently with each step, like wind chimes wrapped around shoulders. Today's path follows a dry creek bed. At some point, you start to hear a faint, rhythmic thump. A head wood, on stone foot, on drum. Turns out it's a hammering rhythm. At the front of the caravan, a pair of people are crouched beside a small rise of limestone. One's holding a chunk of antler, the other a brittle piece of flint. They're carving, or more specifically, percussing. Knapping, to use the technical term, carefully, breaking sharp-edged flakes from bigger rocks to make tools. It's louder than you expected. Sharp cracks echo in the cool air, like prehistoric applause. And what's most striking, the focus. These aren't random rock bashers. There's technique, angles, force, timing. It's like watching someone play a very angry xylophone, but the prize is a weapon or a carving tool, not a song. You glance down at your necklace. Suddenly, its creation feels even more impressive. That bead wasn't found. It was made. Historians still argue whether tool makers were considered separate artisans from bead carvers. Some believe they were one and the same multitaskers by necessity. Others think communities had designated experts the way we have watchmakers or tattoo artists today. It's not that different, really. Precision, steady hands, generations of passed down technique, all with the quiet, unspoken hope that what you make might outlast you. Once the flint shards are collected, they're handed off to a woman nearby. She doesn't carve weapons. She's working on beads. It's delicate work. She flips a tiny piece of slate between her fingers and starts to rub it against a sandstone slab over and over. Eventually, it begins to round out, lose its sharp corners. Another person takes over gently, drilling a hole through it with a sliver of bone spun between their hands like fire starting, only slower, more precise. You crouch beside them, say nothing, just watch. And then you notice one of the half-finished beads has a tiny notch on its side. It's not part of the design. It looks like an accident, maybe a slip, maybe a flaw in the stone. But instead of discarding it, the carver takes a moment, then leans in and carves a matching notch on the opposite side. It's now symmetrical. Mistake. What mistake? It's part of the design now. You stifle a laugh. Even in the Stone Age, improvisation saves the day. You remember something modern, a quote maybe. Art is how we decorate space. Music is how we decorate time. But here, it feels reversed. These beads are timed, strung together like a timeline. One you wear, one that travels with you. Later that day, you find yourself at the edge of a shallow pond. A few people are wading in, pulling up strands of something green and slimy. At first you think seaweed river, moss nope. It's sinew substitute, or close enough. They're gathering fibers to make string. Not exactly glamorous, but essential. The fibers are laid out dried, twisted, and eventually turned into cords. Not unlike the one around your neck. You suddenly appreciate your necklace more. It's not just beads. It's sourcing, napping, drilling, carving, threading, twisting, crafting. Each step is a commitment. Each error an opportunity. Each finished piece a silent whisper. I was here. You sit beside the pond for a while. Watch dragonflies hover over the water like miniature drones of a lost age. Somewhere behind you, someone laughs. A baby cries. A dog barks, or something dog-shaped anyway. You begin to feel it again. The comfort of being surrounded by lives not rushed. Days defined by rhythm, not deadlines. And through all of it, the beads keep clinking. By afternoon, the group stops under the shadow of a large outcropping of rock. It's worn smooth by wind and rain and time. Naturally, some of the kids start climbing it. Because even 30,000 years ago, if you see a rock, you climb it. At the base of the outcrop, something catches your eye. Marks, scratches, indents, faint but intentional. You brush away dirt and moss. There they are, petroglyphs, carvings in stone, swirls, circles, maybe animals, maybe just someone doodling out boredom on a rest break. You remember what the bead carver did earlier, the spiral etched into bone. Is this the same language? A visual echo. You pull out your bead. Compare. Not identical, but close. Symbols carved into stone. Symbols carved into jewelry. Carried from one medium to the next. Maybe to remember. Maybe to tell. Maybe to bind people together under one shared understanding. Historians still debate whether early humans had art for art's sake, or whether everything had function spiritual, mnemonic, or social. Were these carvings sacred educational, or just the earliest signs of teenage graffiti? You hope it's all of the above. Even now, one of the kids at the rock wall pulls out a charred stick and starts sketching with soot. A crude shape. Maybe an animal. Maybe a person. The others cheer. It's awful. And it's perfect. Creativity, it seems, doesn't care what century you're in. As the day fades and the shadows stretch again, you lie on your back beside the fire, your fingers on your bead. You imagine all the hands that could have touched it. You imagine someone thousands of years from now digging it up and wondering what you meant by wearing it. Maybe they'll guess right, maybe not. But the story will continue. The fire's crackling again, soft and low as dusk slides across the sky like an old wool blanket. You stretch your legs toward the heat and wiggle your toes, still sore from today's walk. Your necklace bead feels warm against your chest now, like it's been absorbing the firelight, soaking up memory. Tonight the air smells faintly of roasted tubers and wood smoke. Someone's grinding roots behind you, and the rhythmic scritch, scritch, scritch of the stone grinder is oddly soothing. You glance around and realize everyone is quietly working on something. Not hurried, just methodical. And the more you look, the more you notice something very human. Everyone's decorating something. A woman is stringing beads into her toddler's hair. A boy is tracing a line of ochre pigment down his father's forearm. An elder is wrapping feathers with sinew onto a long walking stick. No one is trying to make art for sale or clout. It's just what you do. The instinct to make something beautiful, however humble, seems as old as fire itself. Historians still debate whether body decoration in prehistoric times was mostly ceremonial or if it just made people feel good. Was red ochre war paint or party makeup? Were feathers signs of status or just, fabulous? The line between sacred and personal might have been blurrier than we think. One man walks past you wearing what looks like a thick leather belt dotted with rows of snail shells. They jingle lightly as he moves. You catch a whiff of damp earth and sweat as he passes. The belt's heavy and frankly kind of impractical, but he wears it proudly, like it's telling a joke only he understands. You begin to think maybe none of this was just about survival. Yes, beads might symbolize power, or community, or achievement, but maybe they also just made you feel alive. After all, when you've been scraping bark and hunting boars all day, maybe carving a shell into a perfect spiral feels like a moment of control in a world that doesn't give you many. Later, a group gathers to watch two teenagers, clearly trying to impress each other, begin a beat-off. That's not an official word, obviously, but it might as well be. One presents a piece made from smooth driftwood, etched with delicate lines. The other counters with something bolder, two boar tusks strung together with dyed sinew, flaring out like wings. There are gasps, laughter, even some very exaggerated eyebrow raises from the elders. The driftwood kid looks crushed until someone hands him a small, glowing bead made of amber. It's old, polished, and slightly cracked. He ties it on and lifts his chin. A comeback, a crowd favorite. And the Tusks boy bows in mock defeat. The group claps no winners, no losers, just shared admiration for trying. You can't help but smile. This prehistoric talent show has all the charm of a modern school art fair, minus the fluorescent lights and sticky name tags. There's something universal about this moment. That small thrill when someone likes what you made. The joy of being noticed. Not for your hunting skill or your fire-starting prowess, but for your taste. You look down at your own necklace again. Still the one bead. Still your quiet, private thing. But something stirs in you. Maybe 2 beads. Tomorrow, you think. Tonight you lie back again, and as the stars prick through the sky, you drift into half sleep, and you dream of a cave, and inside the cave, a wall covered in handprints, some small, some large, all pressed in pigment, flat against stone. It's not fancy. It's not even very good. But it's deeply moving, like a group of people long gone or waving across time. You step closer in the dream, and you notice each handprint has a tiny mark near it. A bead, not real ones, just etched into the stone floating beside each hand. A language, a name, a silent fingerprint. You reach out and touch one and then wake up. The camp is quiet. Only the hiss of coals and soft breathing. You sit up slowly. The moon is high. And then you hear it. A faint rustle. Someone else is awake. You turn and see a girl about your age crouched by the edge of camp, holding something shiny in her hand. She looks up, startled, then motions you over. You walk quietly. Her hand opens to reveal several beads, unfinished, uneven, beautiful in their flaws. She doesn't speak, just holds them out, offering you the choice. You look them over. One is smooth and flat like river glass. Another is bumpy and dark, possibly charred. A third is speckled, maybe from some shell or ancient pottery. You choose one that looks like nothing special, but when the moonlight hits it, it glows faintly like the night itself gave it a kiss. She nods in approval. You add it to your string. Now 2 beads. Still small, still quiet, but not alone. The girl slips away as silently as she came, and you return to your sleeping spot, holding your new necklace gently in your palm until sleep tugs you under once again. Morning comes, soft and pale with mist rolling like a lazy ghost across the low, scrubby hills. You stretch joints, creaking like branches in the cold, and touch your necklace before you even open your eyes. 2 beads now, one old, one new, still quiet, still yours. The camp is already in motion. Fires are being coaxed back to life, ashes stirred and reborn into something useful. You rise and follow the scent of something earthy being roasted, possibly tubers, possibly something less appealing. Let's pretend it's the former. The woman tending the embers greets you with a nod, her wrist clinking softly. Shells and seeds strung together on loose thread dangle from her arms like wearable wind chimes. And just like that, you notice again more beads, more decorations. Today, someone's wearing a necklace made entirely of bird talons. It's either a warning or a flex, or maybe both. As the sun climbs, the caravan begins to pack up. It's moving day again. You walk with the group slowly at first. The terrain is rocky, uneven, and your legs haven't quite forgiven you for yesterday. But movement is life out here. And besides, you're heading somewhere interesting today, the ochre site. You overhear someone say it like it's holy ground. The ochre site, whispered with the kind of reverence usually reserved for sacred springs or well-hidden berry bushes. It's not far, just a few hills over, but the smell hits you before the view does. It's not a bad smell, not exactly, just distinct, like rust sun-warmed clay and a hint of very old rain. The site itself is nestled into the crook of a shallow valley. The earth is stained in streaks of red, yellow, and brown, like the land itself has been painting and then just gave up halfway through. People get to work immediately. Some gather the crumbly ochre rocks. Others begin grinding them into powder using flat stones. A few are already mixing the dust with animal fat or plant oil, making a rich, buttery pigment. You crouch down, rub a fingertip through a smear of crimson, and lift it to your face. Yep, still smells like rust and mystery. Historians still argue whether ochre was used primarily for ritual preservation or beauty. Some believe it had antibacterial properties. Others think it was symbolic blood of the earth, maybe. Still others insist it was just really good makeup. Whatever the reason, early humans loved this stuff. They painted caves with it, bodies, bones, tools, beads. Yes, beads too. You wander over to one of the artists. She's carefully applying ochre pigment to a set of bone beads strung on a deer tendon cord, dipping them gently into the paste, letting the color soak into tiny grooves, then setting them out to dry. It's slow work, but mesmerizing. Eventually, she notices you watching and hands you a small unfinished bead. You take it, dip it into a pan of ochre paste, and roll it between your fingers. It feels sacred, even if you have no idea what it's for. Nearby, someone paints their face with long diagonal stripes. Another adds dots around their eyes. You see swirls on shoulders, loops around elbows. Even a baby gets a tiny ochre fingerprint on its forehead. You begin to understand it's not just decoration, it's identification, ritual, maybe even protection. You look down at your necklace, still 2 beads, one plain, one glowing, but now you're holding a third ochre stain, still wet, still new. You carry it with you as the caravan begins to move again. This afternoon's walk is quieter. No one speaks much. It's not solemn, just thoughtful, like everyone's carrying something delicate inside. The path leads past a strange arrangement of stones, not natural, definitely deliberate. A circle, or what's left of one. There's nothing flashy about it. No towering structures or carved statues. Just large rocks arranged carefully, half buried in the earth, worn by centuries of wind and weather. You pause. Others do too. Someone places a bead on one of the stones. Then another person adds a small piece of charcoal. And suddenly this place is not just old, it's alive. A memory made of silence and offerings. You add your ochre bead to the pile. You don't know what it means, but it feels right. Later, the group sets up camp near a patch of scrub trees and slow-moving water. A fire is built, and the night creeps in gently. You sit beside a woman with hair braided into loops, beads and bones woven into the strands. She's carving something small from antler, a new bead it looks like, tiny notches on the side. Decorative, maybe. Or maybe code. You ask her softly what the notches mean. She smiles, says nothing, then points to the sky, and you realize the bead has 5 notches, and the moon above you is a crescent. You tilt your head. 5 notches. 5 days into the cycle, or 5 children, or 5 journeys. Historians still debate whether early beads were used as calendars or markers of time. Some believe they helped track lunar cycles, seasons, even pregnancies. Others argue they were mnemonic devices like wearable to-do lists or visual stories. Maybe each bead meant I made it through this. Or, don't forget what happened here. You glance at your string again. 2 beads tied, 1 offered, 1 notched, each one a step in your own invisible story. And tonight, under stars that don't yet know city lights, you understand something. You're not just wearing a necklace, you're carrying a map, not to a place, but to a life. You wake to birdsong. Not the polished soundtrack kind, just raw, chaotic chirps, like 1,000 tiny creatures are trying to shout over each other. It's oddly comforting. You blink against the light, stretch your back, and remember the bead you placed on that ancient stone circle yesterday. It's gone now, taken by the earth or by someone else. Doesn't matter. It served its purpose. The group is already stirring, some stretching, some poking at the coals, others packing up. You join the slow, practiced rhythm. The morning smells of damp grass and faint wood smoke. Your fingers find the cord around your neck, now back to 2 beads again. But you feel lighter, not missing anything. You gave something, and somehow that gave something back. As you walk, the ground shifts. The forest begins to thin, and the trees turn scrubbier. Ahead, the guide points to a ridge. Beyond that, a coastal site. You didn't expect a beach in prehistory, but here you are. And then the smell hits sharp, salty, and a little fishy. Yep, definitely the coast. The landscape changes drastically. Wide, flat areas where reeds grow tall, and beyond them, what looks like the skeleton of a very old village. Not a village with walls or tiled roofs or anything you'd recognize from medieval movies. Just pits, post holes, and scattered shells. A lot of shells. You're at a shell-midden, a trash pile, but also a time capsule. Centuries of discarded clamshells, snail shells, broken tools, charred bones, and bead fragments. Historians still argue whether these places were just convenient waste zones or sacred memory sites. Some think people returned to them seasonally, adding to them like layered diaries. Others believe they were used for ceremonies or even burials. You squat beside the mound. A breeze carries the smell of salt and old calcium. You reach down, gently, pry at a cracked shell, half buried in the earth, and there it is. A bead. It's small, dull, chalky, possibly unfinished, possibly forgotten, possibly meant for someone who never returned. You clean it gently, blowing away grit. It has a hole drilled through the middle carefully, deliberately. That alone would have taken time and patience. These weren't mass-produced. Each one was a tiny act of devotion. A woman nearby is washing shells in a leather pouch filled with seawater. She hums as she works dipping them, scrubbing gently with a bit of frayed twine. Some she sets aside probably for food, but others she lines up on a cloth. You notice something subtle. They're sorted by shape size, even color. Cream to beige, beige to brown. Then a sudden pop of deep violet. You ask her softly if the violet one is special. She nods. Then, in a whisper, sunshell. Apparently, these shells are only that vibrant when harvested at a very specific time, usually dusk. The shell's pigment reacts to light, or maybe the mood of the tide. She's not sure, but when you hold it up, it shimmers faintly. You wonder how many beads were made by trial and error. How many snapped? How many were discarded, remade, repurposed? Then you spot a child, probably 6 or 7, holding what looks like a necklace strung with mismatched bits, broken beads, tiny bones, even a piece of bird claw. The kid beams with pride, clearly convinced it's the best necklace ever made. And honestly, you kind of agree. You ask to see it. The child nods solemnly and drapes it around your neck. For a moment, it clinks softly against your own string. Then the kid reclaims it and runs off laughing. You're left with the echo of sound, the weight of meaning. Later, you help dig a shallow pit archaeological work without knowing the word. The soil is dark, packed with remnants, fish bones, scallop shells, bits of flint. You find another bead, oval, smooth, a tiny groove around the edge. You turn to an elder and ask about the groove. He squints. Storm bead, he says. You wait. When the sea is loud, it makes lines in the shell. That's where the power is. You nod as if you understand. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Historians still debate whether certain bead patterns were meant to convey emotion, weather danger, or simply followed aesthetics. Was beauty ever just beauty? Or did every line carry a message? As night falls, a small ceremony begins. Not a grand ritual, but a gentle gathering. A pile of driftwood, a fire kindled, and a soft chant in the old tongue. No drums, no theatrics, just voices and beads. People approach the fire and toss in fragments. Broken beads, snapped threads, ruined shells. Letting go, offering what couldn't be worn anymore. You step forward too. You reach into your pouch and touch the shell bead you found earlier. You hesitate, then place it gently on the fire. It doesn't burn, of course, just darkens, then splits with a faint pop. The smoke smells faintly of salt. You step back, lighter again. The ceremony ends. People disperse. Some linger. You walk toward the tide. The moon paints the water silver, and for just a moment the wet sand beneath your feet sparkles. Tiny broken shells catch the moonlight like someone spilled a jar of stars and forgot to clean up. You crouch down, press your fingers into the cool, damp sand, and when you pull them back, a bead caught in the crease of your palm, as if the sea wasn't done with you yet. The wind has changed by morning. It blows cooler now, threading its fingers through the grass and tugging gently at your tunic. You wake to the hush-hush rhythm of waves and the whisper of reeds along the edge of the marsh. Salt still lingers in the air, clinging to your skin, drying in the lines of your knuckles. You stretch slowly, and your hand finds its way to the cord around your neck. The new bead is there, the sea-gifted one. It's smooth and light, with the faintest spiral. You don't know what kind of creature it once was, but it must have lived in some quiet tide pool, burrowing into sand and rhythm long before you were born. And now, here it is, riding with you. The group doesn't linger long. The tide is shifting, and with it the mood. You're inland bound again, leaving behind the brine and brittle grass. The trail turns into something rockier, dustier. The wind carries less ocean and more sunburnt earth. You pass through low hills where strange things start to appear. Scattered stones that don't belong, carved bits of antler, half-shaped flint cores, and then, most intriguingly, a patch of soil flecked with color, not red this time, but black and gray like an old hearth or a workshop. The guide raises a hand. People slow. This isn't a rest stop, it's a sight. And the air here is different, quieter, almost expectant. You sit near the dark patch and start to notice things. Shards of broken rock, scraps of sinew, hardened like old twine, and bead fragments. So many bead fragments. This was a bead maker's camp. Historians still argue whether bead making was a communal activity or the work of specialists. Some believe it was a trade skill passed down, guarded, even bartered. Others suggest anyone could do it if they had time and patience and enough unbroken fingernails. You reach down and pick up a broken bit, just a curve of bone with a half-drilled hole. The drill marks are faint but deliberate. It was being worked from both sides, which is clever, less risk of cracking. And near it, the tool. It's no bigger than your thumb, made from a rodent tooth, wrapped at one end with sinew to give it grip. A prehistoric Dremel tool, if you will. Still sharp, still effective. You try it. Carefully, gently. You press the tip to a small disc of soft stone and twist slowly. The motion is hypnotic. Twist, lift, twist, check the hole. Not deep enough. Twist again. Your fingers ache within minutes. You blink and glance around, realize you're not alone. 3 others are doing the same thing. Someone's humming again. And someone else is silently threading beads onto a string of woven grass. You could stay here forever if your knees weren't turning into fossilized wood. One of the elders gestures for you to follow. You tuck your work in progress into your pouch and rise, brushing the grit from your hands. He leads you a little way uphill where the ground becomes uneven. You realize you're standing among mounds, shallow ones, covered in tough grass, burial sites. No bones are visible, of course. That would be messy and disrespectful. But what you do see set into the mounds are arrangements of stones, circles, spirals, even one shaped like a line of footprints. Each one is marked with beads. Some are weathered and sun-bleached. Others are newer, more colorful. Someone's placed a line of blue-green beads around one stone like a necklace offered back to the land. You kneel near one mound and spot a bead nestled in a crack between two stones. It's made of jet, a soft black stone that shines like glass, probably shaped by hours of sanding. You touch it with just your fingertips. The elder beside you finally speaks. She was a bead singer. You blink. That's not a phrase you've heard. She made songs from them, he says. Each one had a sound, a step, a memory. Historians still debate whether some bead arrangements were used like primitive language or music. The idea sounds poetic, but then again, people have made meaning from rhythm for thousands of years. It's not a far stretch. You wonder what this jet bead meant. A breath, a loss, a beginning. That night the camp sets up further uphill, where the wind is sharper and the view is wide. Fires are small, just enough for warmth and water. You sit with your pouch open, your hands busy. Inside one sea bead, one fragment from the midden, one soft stone. You've been drilling slowly. You take them out and lay them in a line. Then, quietly, you begin to thread. A bit of grass twine, a twist, one bead, a loop, two beads, a knot, three. By the time the moon rises, you've created something that almost looks like a story. You wear it for the rest of the night, feeling its weight settle against your chest. It's not heavy, but it's present. And when you lie down to sleep, curled near a rock, warmed by the fading fire, you think about how many fingers across how many centuries did the same quiet work. Twist, knot, thread. Not to sell, not to hoard, but to remember and to be remembered. You wake before the sun. Not on purpose, your back has its own internal alarm clock now set to the exact angle of prehistoric dirt. But even before your eyes open, you sense something stillness, not silence exactly. There's the whisper of wind and the soft murmurs of those who never really sleep, but a deeper stillness, like the land is holding its breath. When you sit up, the sky is smeared with that eerie blue that only exists in the minutes before dawn. You look around. The bead singer's burial mound is still visible just below the ridge, framed against the dim glow. And your necklace, it's still around your neck. 3 beads slightly off-center. It makes you look like you forgot to finish a sentence, which feels oddly appropriate. Today's walk takes you along a ridge that overlooks a broad valley. Down below, a river carves its lazy path through stone and sand, and nestled beside it, something that makes your eyebrows rise, structures. real ones, not stone castles or timber lodges, but post frames, dozens of them, ringing a central space like someone's idea of a community. This isn't just a campsite, it's a village, maybe even the prehistoric version of a suburb. When you get closer, the scent hits you first. Not fish, not earth, but something burnt, charcoal, charred wood, ancient fire. You step carefully among the ruins. Some parts have been reclaimed by grass, while others are still littered with the remains of what might have once been roofs, benches, walls, and beads. Everywhere beads, not whole necklaces, but individual pieces strung on half-buried loops of sinew tucked into corners of post holes lying beneath what used to be cooking pits. Historians still argue whether this was a ceremonial village or just a seasonal gathering place. Some believe it was where clans came together to trade merry or share stories. Others think it might have been a refuge during floods, a meeting of minds and hands before returning to scattered homes. You walk through what must have been the central clearing. It's surrounded by blackened stones set in a pattern of lines, radiating outward like sun rays. Someone near you murmurs the word calendar, but someone else snorts. Or a giant fire pit, they counter. Either way, it's impressive. And at the center, of course, another bead. This one is glassy, not from material, but from heat. It's been partially melted, warped into a soft oblong by the fire. It glints red-brown in the rising sun, like an eye half open. You crouch beside it and trace the edge with your thumb. The bead didn't belong here, not originally. It wasn't dropped or lost. It was placed deliberately. There's no way to be certain, but you get the sense it marks something important. An ending, maybe, or a warning, or a hope. As you move on, someone explains that fire beads, those placed in ashes, were sometimes believed to carry messages to ancestors. Burned, cracked, or blackened, they were seen as bridges between the living and the remembered. You pocket a small shard from nearby. Not the eye bead. You're not a thief. Just a sliver of worked bone that must have once been part of something beautiful. A fragment of a fragment. A footnote. Further into the ruins, you find what must have been a crafting zone. Shards of ochre are ground into bowls. Bead cores litter the dirt, each one a testimony to time and thumb pain. You spot a few made from boar tusk, rare, heavy, and hard to drill without cracking. And then, something unexpected, a bead made from antler. You pick it up. It's heavier than it looks, with visible carving. Along one side, scratches that might be decorative or accidental, or somewhere in between. The hole is off-center, making it lopsided. You love it immediately. You show it to a companion. Trade bead, she says. Apparently, uneven beads were sometimes used to test the patience of traders, or they were seen as more valuable because they were harder to replicate. Historians still debate this naturally. Was imperfection a mark of status, or just the reality of hand tools and bad lighting? You sit beneath a standing post, one of the few that remains upright, and let your hand close around the bead. You can feel the grain of the antler, even now, the life it once held. Someone calls for a break. You eat a handful of dried berries, wash them down with water that tastes faintly of leather, and stretch out beside a tilted stone. Your necklace clinks softly as you move. You think about the people who once lived here, how they rose with the sun, tended to beads, and bowls told jokes around fire pits, argued over who had the best drill. You imagine a child running through the clearing, tripping, dropping a bead that rolled into the dirt and was never seen again until you. Later that day, you help repair a structure. Not in the modern sense, there are no power tools, no blueprints, but with effort and instinct. You help lash saplings into place, weave reed walls, and flatten dirt with the soles of your feet. It's satisfying, ancient, yes, but also deeply human. And when you finish, someone ties a new bead onto your twine. It's carved wood, stained with berry juice, with a tiny triangle scratched into one side. It smells faintly sweet, like bark warmed in the sun. You thank them. They nod. You're not sure if the triangle means anything, but when you walk back toward camp, it bounces lightly on your chest, a beat, a rhythm, another part of your story, and in the distance across the valley, you spot another group arriving. More travelers, more stories, more beads. This valley holds 1,000 lives. And somehow they're all speaking through twine and teeth, through cracked shells and tiny scratches. Through you. The sound of the river is louder now. You've moved closer into the belly of the valley, where its bends cut through the land like the slow strokes of an absent-minded painter. You trail the others along a path, carved not by people, but by generations of hooves and bare feet. Its soft underfoot damp in places, giving off that earthy smell of mud and moss and something very old decaying just beneath the surface. You pause near a low bend where the river has eaten away the bank and exposed a cross-section of time layers of soil, stacked like pages, each one whispering about floods, droughts, and the occasional fire. And caught in one of those layers, a bead, half buried, as if someone long ago had knelt here, perhaps washing their hands or whispering to the water, and their necklace gave way to gravity. You fish it out gently. It's made of shell, chalky white, still clinging to some of the clay that tried to claim it. Smooth around the edges, one side cracked. You brush it off and tuck it into your pouch, unsure if you're saving it or just borrowing it for a while. Today's activity isn't walking, not exactly. It's gathering. Everyone spreads out across the flats beside the river. The elder with the fox-tooth necklace, the same one who spoke of bead singers, hands out baskets made of bark and braided grass. You take one, blinking in confusion. We're not making beads today, he says. We're finding what they come from. Bead raw material. It sounds dull until you start. Soon you're squatting in the mud, fingers deep in river muck, pulling out shells with spiral grooves, pebbles with unlikely holes, already drilled by time and water. One rock is so perfectly rounded you suspect it once lived on someone's wrist. Another looks exactly like a strawberry if strawberries were made of quartz and had the power to bruise your thumb. You rinse your finds in the river, marveling at the way even broken things look deliberate when held against the sunlight. One person finds a fish vertebra perfectly intact, which will almost certainly be turned into a charm. Another uncovers a bead already made. How or when, no one can tell. It could have been dropped last month or 1,000 years ago. Either way, it's back now. Historians still argue whether beads found near rivers were deliberate offerings or just accidental losses. Were they sacrifices to the water gifts, to spirits, or did someone just trip and lose their best necklace during a particularly dramatic sneeze? You wade further out, feeling the chill bite at your knees. Your fingers are stiff. Your back aches, but it's peaceful work, meditative. You lose track of time. At one point, you kneel to pick up a dull gray stone, only to realize it's a tooth, not human, thank goodness, but something large. Boar bison, maybe even an aurochs, those long extinct beasts that once thundered across Europe. You hold it reverently, not quite a bead, but close, a relic. You set it in the center of a nearby flat stone like an offering. Then you sit beside it and eat something from your pouch. It's chewy, probably meat, definitely not fresh. Still, it's fuel. And the sound of chewing mixes nicely with the bubbling river and the occasional delighted gasp of a new find. By midday, everyone's baskets are full. You lay your haul on a sun-warmed rock to dry shell bits, shiny pebbles, seed pods that could be hardened and hollowed. The variety is ridiculous. Beads really are made from anything. That banana you had for breakfast, given time, its skin could be dried and woven into twine. Even its tiny black seeds could be drilled. Someone probably did it once. That's the thing about early humans. They had time. Lots of it. Enough to look at a fish scale and wonder what it would feel like, strung on a thread. You sit with the group while the elder teaches you how to sort. Not every pretty thing is strong, he warns, tapping a thin sliver of mica that shatters in his fingers. You learn to test for strength. Snap, soak, tap, rub against your skin. Smell it even. One piece of wood smells like pepper. Another smells like swamp. Guess which one becomes a bead and which one goes back to the mud. Later, you learn to heat things. A fire is lit, and stones are placed inside some, to harden some, to split. You drop in a few of your finds and wait. As the flames rise, someone passes around a collection of finished beads. They're old, cracked, and smoothed by years of wear. One is made from resin golden and sticky looking with a fossilized bug inside. Another is pink stone soft as soap. You run your thumb across it and wonder whose story it once held. That night you sit beside the river again, firelight licking at the edges of your thoughts. The air smells like wet grass and something faintly metallic. You've braided a short strand of twine not long enough for a necklace, maybe just a charm loop. You tie a single shell bead onto it, the one you found in the bank. It's crooked, imperfect, but when you hold it up, it glints. You imagine someone doing this same thing 1,000 years ago, not because they had to, but because they wanted to hold a bit of the world on a string. And now you do too. You're up early again, and this time the air carries a different weight, a bit smokier, a bit busier. The camp hums with the low rustle of movement, hands weaving tools tapping someone singing off-key as they file down a chunk of antler. Today is for making. The morning starts with a lesson in drills. Not power drills, though wouldn't that be something, but the ancient kind. You're handed a bow drill, its slender spindle twined in a gut string bow, and invited to try your luck. You wrap your fingers around the handle like it's an alien artifact, which, to be fair, it kind of is. You press the spindle into a small piece of soapstone and begin to move, back and forth, back and forth. At first it's rhythmic, almost soothing, but after 3 minutes, your arm burns. After 6, you're swearing under your breath. After 10, your soapstone has a dent the size of a raindrop, and you've worked up a full-on prehistoric sweat. A teenager beside you, maybe 12, has already drilled 2 perfect holes in bone and is now working on a 3rd. They don't even look up. Just says, try leaning more. You do. It helps. A little. The process of turning raw material into beads is slow. Glacial even. You sort your river finds, setting aside what's too fragile, too crumbly, too soft. The survivors, the promising ones, get rubbed smooth with sandstone shaped between thumb and rock, like you're trying to teach them patience. You work beside others who barely speak. One older woman communicates entirely through gestures. Tap once to say, good, tap twice for start over. Wave hand dramatically for, oh no, what have you done? She hands you a tiny tool made from flint, sharp, curved, efficient. You carve a line around your bead, just a shallow groove, decorative, maybe, or maybe it's to help grip it when threading. Historians still argue whether bead markings were symbolic practical or just a byproduct of someone fidgeting too hard. By midday, your thumb is raw, your legs are numb, and you've created exactly 3 beads. One is a small black stone with an off-center hole. One is a slice of shell that wobbles when set on a flat surface. And one is lovely. It's made from river glass, a melted pebble, probably formed in a fire long extinguished. Pale green with a shimmer like a dragonfly wing. Its hole is clean, its edges smooth, and when you hold it to the sun, it lights up like a piece of candy. You want to eat it. You don't. But you want to. You thread it onto your growing necklace with quiet satisfaction. Later, you join a circle where finishing touches are added. Burnishing, polishing, rubbing, in oils. A thick paste made from crushed berries and ash is used to stain wood and bone. You dip a finger in and touch your shell slice. It stains purple. It looks ridiculous. You love it anyway. As the afternoon passes, people begin to swap, bartering beads for twine, for dried mushrooms, for a story. You offer your off-center black stone to someone who trades you a flake of red ochre in return. You don't know if the trade is fair. It feels fair, and that's enough. Someone else has a bead shaped like a tiny bear paw. It's carved from jet, deeply black, warm to the touch, despite its sheen. They say it belonged to their grandmother, who wore it in her hair. You're not sure if they're serious or just trying to impress you. Either way, it works. You spend the evening arranging your new treasures. You rethread your necklace. Add the green glass, the ochre-stained shell, and the jet flake you bartered from a man who looked suspiciously like a traveling poet. When you're done, it hangs heavy and uneven, like a sentence spoken in two languages. You smile. Around you, firelight flickers on faces smeared with dust and dye. Someone is singing again, a low pulsing melody that might be ancient or improvised, honestly hard to tell. It has that universal sound of a song that's been sung more than it's been heard. Across the flames, someone's holding up a long strand of beads, a full loop. It catches every bit of light and scatters it across the faces of the circle. There is a murmur of approval, the prehistoric equivalent of applause. Maybe a few jealous side eyes. Then the storyteller begins. They hold up a bead carved from amber and say, "This one was found in the stomach of a wolf." A ripple of laughter. Someone says, "Sure it was," but no one asks them to stop. The story unfolds about the wolf, the winter, the desperate hunt, and how after the creature was brought down, the bead was found among the bones glistening with digestive truth. It's probably fake. It's definitely memorable. Historians would scoff. They'd argue endlessly over whether beads could survive digestion, whether wolves were common in that region, whether amber even existed in that time frame. You don't care. You love the story. You look down at your necklace now, hanging just below your collarbone, and you wonder what stories people will tell about it someday. Maybe none. Maybe everything. That night, as you settle onto your bed of reeds, your hands instinctively find the beads. They're warm from your skin, familiar now, weighted. You whisper their names, the ones you've given them, not the ones they might have had. Green glass, jet flake, river shell, off-center, crooked smile. They don't answer, but somehow they hum. And you fall asleep dreaming of wolves and songs and the feel of glass against your tongue. Morning comes with that peculiar silence that only exists in places where nothing mechanical hums. No cars, no phones buzzing, just the wind slipping between trees and the occasional creak of leather or bone as someone stretches beside the ashes of the old fire. Today, you're not making beads. Today, you're wearing them. One by one, people emerge from their shelters. Braided branches hide tense hollows near the rocks adorned in what they've made. It's not a ceremony, not exactly. No one's beating drums or chanting. But there's a slowness to everything, a sort of reverence in how each person adjusts a necklace or tightens a bracelet made from dyed sinew and snail shells. You follow suit, tying your necklace behind your neck. It doesn't match anything you're wearing, which, let's be honest, is mostly fur and regret. But still, it feels deliberate, like punctuation or armor. Someone hands you a smear of something sticky and pungent. It smells like crushed mint and maybe deer fat. You're not sure, but others are rubbing it onto their beads. You copy them. Turns out it's a preservative, a sort of early oil finish, the kind of thing archaeologists scrape off thousands of years later and wonder, was this ritual or just functional? Historians still argue whether bead wearing was symbolic, ornamental, or purely a marker of status and trade. But here in this moment, you realize it doesn't matter. You're not just wearing jewelry. You're wearing memories, little loops of time. Your green glass bead catches the light as you move flashing briefly in the low sun. The kid with the perfect drill work from yesterday gives you a nod. Approval, maybe. Or just acknowledgement that you've entered the club of people who now understand how long a single hole can take. You spend the early part of the day walking, not hunting, not gathering, just moving through the woods like a parade of rust and silence. Beads click softly with each step. Some bounce against skin. Some rattle against antler buckles. The group doesn't speak much, but every now and then someone points at a hawk overhead, a strange mark in the dirt, a tree whose bark looks suspiciously like a human face. You're told it's called moving slow to see more. That's not poetic. That's just practical. Eventually, you reach a clearing. It's ringed with stones, and in the center sits a tall, weather-worn post. It's ancient. Moss has claimed most of it. But if you squint, you can make out carvings, loops, lines, the faint outline of what might have once been a hand. No one explains what it is. No one needs to. You all just start hanging your beads. One by one, people remove a single bead from their necklaces, their bracelets, their belts, and tie them onto the post. Some knots are loose, meant to fall away. Others are tight, permanent. You hesitate. Your fingers trace over your collection, wondering which to give. In the end, you choose the crooked river shell, the one with the purple stain. It's not the prettiest, but it's yours. It came from mud and was shaped by mistake and stained in laughter. And now it'll live here, a story left behind. You tie it gently and step back. And that's when the wind changes. You smell it before you hear it, the soft rising tang of firewood and something else. Food. You turn. Sure enough, smoke curls from a fire pit near the trees. Someone's been roasting roots and strips of meat. Your stomach roars its approval. Beads forgotten. You jog toward the promise of something warm. Lunch is communal. You sit in a circle passing around slabs of roasted yam, a thin broth made from mushrooms, and flat cakes of something chewy and mysterious. One of them has crushed seeds in it. You hope they're intentional. Conversations drift in and out of earshot. Someone's talking about the time they accidentally drilled through their own thumbnail. Someone else is bragging about a bead they once made from glassy black volcanic rock. Someone says they swallowed a bead as a child and swears they can still hear it rattle when they jump. You laugh, you eat, you adjust your necklace again and realize you're missing the crooked shell and feel proud instead of sad. After the meal, there's music, not flutes or harps or whatever medieval image you might conjure. No, this is more primal. Hollow bones tapped against logs. Stones click together in time. Someone starts a rhythm by slapping their knees, and the group joins in. It's a heartbeat, a dance waiting to happen. And then movement, not full-blown choreography, just swaying, spinning, a sort of loose, grounded movement that makes the bead sway and clack and tick like clockwork. You join in. Your necklace bounces with each shift of your shoulders. The jet flake taps your collarbone. The green glass flares as it swings. It's hypnotic. You lose time. Later, sweaty and flushed, you sit back against a tree. The moss is damp, but you don't care. You're tired, but in that good way. Like your body has finally remembered what it's for. You finger the beads. You didn't give up. Whisper their names again. Smile at how strange it is, this simple magic of holes in stones. And you wonder, did they wear them to feel brave, to feel seen, to feel less alone? Or maybe it was just about beauty, the kind that's hard-won, the kind you make with your own blistered hands. You lie back, letting the branches sway above you. Somewhere, someone's still tapping stones, a soft, steady rhythm, like time, like breath, like you. You wake the next morning to the soft pat-pat of drizzle on the hide above your head. The sky is gray, the air rich with the smell of wet leaves and damp earth, the kind of day that makes everything a little slower. Even the birds seem to be mumbling through their songs. You stretch beneath your rough blanket of woven plant fiber and fur. Your necklace has tangled itself while you slept a mess of knots and loops against your chest. You pick at it, undoing the twists, feeling each bead like a secret you nearly forgot. You're cool to the touch, a little slick from sweat, maybe rain, maybe dreams. Today is quiet. No one announces it. No one has to. The camp just moves in a lower register. Conversations are murmurs. The fire is smaller. Even the dogs, yes, there are dogs, shaggy things that look like wolves with jobs, seem to tiptoe. You step into the wet grass, barefoot necklace hanging over your tunic. It sways with your movement, gentle and rhythmic, like a pendulum that forgot how to count. Across the clearing, someone is making new beads. They're crouched under a simple awning, a slanted hide stretched between stakes. Beside them, a basket of bird bones light hollow and ready. The person isn't carving today, though. They're painting with a brush made of bound grass and squirrel hair. They dip it into a thick red paste made from clay and crushed berries Then swirl tiny designs onto the surface of a finished bead, a spiral, a handprint, a sun. You crouch beside them watching. They don't mind. They even hand you a bead unfinished chalky. You roll it between your fingers, then reach for the brush. The first swirl you paint is crooked. The second is worse. But the third, somehow it works. It feels good, like drawing on time itself. Historians still debate whether painted beads were meant for rituals used as tokens in trade or just an ancient version of doodling out of boredom. Honestly, you're starting to see how all three could be true. Someone brings you a cup of warm liquid. It's vaguely sweet, vaguely sour, and definitely not modern. You sip and paint another bead, then another. As the drizzle thickens, a small group gathers beneath the awning, not talking, just painting. A quiet communion of color and shape and imagination. Someone starts humming, low, a few bars of a melody that may have no name. You hum with them. It's easy. Time passes without you noticing. The camp becomes a scatter of umbrellas that aren't umbrellas. Cloaks thrown over heads. Furs hunched up like turtles. People gather under rock outcroppings, under tree limbs, under the sky itself, just blinking into the mist. You wander. Your feet take you to the edge of camp, to a little path you've passed a dozen times but never followed. Today you do. The path winds through dripping trees, past bushes, weighed low with rain. And then, there it is, a small stream. And in the stream, a cluster of stones, smooth, shining wet. You kneel. You begin to search again. This time you're not looking for perfect shapes. You're not thinking about holes or polish or symmetry. You're looking for color, for character, for stones that feel like something. You find one that's greenish with a white stripe, like a mossy candy cane. Another is flat and round, a perfect button shape. Then there's a piece of broken bone, yellowed and jagged, but worn so smooth at the edges, it looks like it's been loved by the water. You pocket them, not with urgency, but with a kind of lazy reverence. These things aren't for trading. They're not even for wearing. Not yet. They're just yours. Quiet companions. On your way back, you see someone hanging beads on a tree. Not on a shrine, not on a post, just a tree. The low branches are dotted with them, tiny flashes of color against bark. You pause, unsure. Is this a tradition? A joke? A message? They glance at you and smile. No reason, they say. Just liked how it looked. So you add one too. The button-shaped stone. You nestle it in a crook of the branch. It fits perfectly. You walk away lighter. Back at camp, the fire is hissing from the rain, but it still burns. You wrap yourself in a fur and sit near it. Someone hands you a bowl of something hot. It smells like mushrooms and something meaty. You're too cold to ask questions. You eat. The necklace lies heavy around your neck beads, warmed by your skin. You don't think of it as decoration anymore. It's more like a memory in physical form, or a very patient diary. People around the fire begin sharing stories again. Not big ones, just moments. I once found a bead that looked like an eye. I made one so small I swallowed it and didn't notice for a day. My mother told me never to wear a broken bead. It means you're carrying someone else's sorrow. That last one stays with you. You touch your green glass bead just to check. Still whole, still gleaming. The rain keeps falling. The fire crackles. Someone starts singing that same quiet song from earlier, but slower now, softer. You don't remember when you fell asleep, only that when you wake, the rain has stopped. The camp is dark, the fire is low, and the necklace around your neck feels like it belongs there. You dream of painted spirals and red clay, of trees wearing necklaces and wolves whispering stories, of hands, hundreds of them, passing beads down through time. You wake to a sky brushed in gold and pale blue, one of those crisp, dry mornings that makes every breath feel like it's brushing out your lungs with a soft broom. The earth beneath you is cool but not cold, the kind of temperature that whispers, "Today is a good day for walking," and that's exactly what you'll do. No one says so. But there's a quiet momentum to the way everyone's packing up, the way furs are folded, stones are gathered, bones bundled, and beads are tucked safely into pouches or worn proudly around necks. The camp is on the move again. Your necklace swings against your collarbone as you walk a rhythmic tap-tap that eventually syncs with your steps. The bead with the faded ochre swirl hums a little when it hits the shell beside it, like a tiny wind chime made of ancient accidents. The road, well, let's call it a path, though. It's really just flattened grass, and the occasional scrape of old footprints winds through meadows and woods. Every now and then, someone pauses to pick up a promising rock. You join in, not because you need more beads, but because your eyes are trained now. Once you start spotting treasure in the dirt, it's hard to stop. One person finds a tooth. Human, animal. Hard to say. They don't keep it. A kid finds something that looks suspiciously like a bead, but it's not. Just a nut with a perfect bug hole. They wear it anyway. You pass by a tree with bark stripped in patches. Someone's carved marks into it, short lines in a staggered pattern. Could be a message. Could be someone's idea of fun. Historians still argue whether such carvings were territory markers, storytelling tools, or just ancient graffiti. Either way, you stop and press your palm against it. It's rough, cold, but also a little thrilling, like touching the residue of someone else's thoughts. By midday, the group pauses near a river bend. It's wide and slow with shallow shelves near the banks where you can sit and dip your feet in the clear water. You unlace your footwear, woven reeds tied with hide, and wade in. The cold shocks your skin, but feels honest. Nearby, someone rinses their bead collection. They hold each piece beneath the current like it's being baptized. You do the same. The grime lifts, The colors brighten. The green glass gleams again. The old shell bead you gave away still flickers in your memory, and somehow that's enough to make you smile. A cluster of people gathers beside the river to trade, not loudly, no shouting or bidding wars, just gentle offerings, a bone for a feather, a bracelet for a bundle of dried berries. You watch someone swap a trio of striped beads for a carved hairpin shaped like a fish. It's all fluid based on mood and need and some strange internal calculus you'll never fully understand. You finger the beads on your own necklace. Do you trade one? Do you keep them all? Each one feels like a fingerprint now, unique, specific yours. You decide to hold off for now. After lunch, roots and smoked fish and something that might be a beet. You find yourself walking with a woman whose necklace is the size of a small snake. It drapes over her shoulder like a sash, heavy and jangling. Each bead tells a story, she says. She touches them one by one, naming places, faces, events. This one's from when lightning struck a deer, not 10 steps from me, she says. This one, my brother's last gift before he left. And this one, she pauses. No story. It just felt right. You nod. Because honestly, sometimes a bead doesn't need a reason. Sometimes it's enough that it found you. The group moves again, leaving the river behind. The land flattens. The horizon stretches wider. You spot the remains of another camp, just a ring of blackened stones and a patch of trampled grass. Someone lived here, or passed through, or both. In the distance, a hill rises, not tall, but round and gentle like the back of some giant sleeping under the dirt. The path curves toward it. At the top, there's a circle of stones, not the kind for fires. These are tall, upright, arranged with care, weathered and cracked, but still defiant against the wind. You approach beads, clinking quietly as you move. No one speaks. There's something sacred here. Maybe it was a meeting place, a marker of seasons, a burial site. Historians still debate it all. They always will. You stand at the edge of the circle. The air is different here. Thinner, maybe. Or maybe you're just holding your breath. One by one, people step forward. Some leave beads. Some touch the stones. Some close their eyes and whisper things into the wind. You do the same. You reach for the bead with the pale blue streak. Your first successful drill. Your first polished stone. And you tie it to a notch in the standing rock. Not to give it away, just to leave it for a moment, to share it. You don't say anything. The bead says enough. When you finally turn away, the sun is setting. The sky is a sheet of gold, leaking into pink. You feel lighter, not because you've lost anything, but because you've added to something bigger. The camp sets up for the night at the base of the hill. The fire crackles. Beads glitter in the fading light. Someone starts to sing again. A song you recognize now. You hum along. You lie down beneath the open sky, the necklace warm against your chest, the grass cool beneath your back. The stars blink on one by one, And your beads, quiet, patient, worn smooth by time and fingers and memory, hold all the stories you don't need to retell. Not tonight. You don't remember falling asleep, but you do remember the dream. A long corridor made of bone, each wall strung with necklaces like curtains, some glittering with ancient stones, others dull with dust and age. You walk barefoot across a floor paved with shell fragments, each step producing a quiet clink. In your dream, you don't speak, you just listen. The beads are whispering. When you open your eyes, the sky is the color of unbaked clay. Morning is slow to arrive, dragging a heavy peach-colored light across the land. You stretch beneath your furs and feel the familiar weight of your necklace nestled into your collarbone like a loyal dog that never wandered. There's breakfast, something rooty, something chewy, something warm. You eat without really tasting, watching the smoke drift lazily from the campfire. The group is slower today, tired, satisfied, quiet. You hear a baby crying in the distance and the soft hush of its mother's voice. You hear someone sharpening a blade against stone. You hear laughter, low and sudden, then gone. And in all of it, you hear beads moving, tiny percussion instruments tied to people's throats and wrists and belts. Like a village of wind chimes, always saying something, even when words fail. After breakfast, you wander a little. The camp sprawls like a lazy river, no real plan, just flow. You notice the variety again. Some people wear beads like status symbols, thick ropes of decorated bone and shiny stone draped across chests like armor. Others tuck them into pouches out of sight, but never far. One woman you pass has exactly one bead, a single gleaming black stone sewn into the cuff of her sleeve. It catches the sun and winks at you. She doesn't smile. She just nods. And honestly, it feels more meaningful than any conversation you've had this week. Later, a small gathering forms near the central fire. Someone's laying out a pattern on the ground using beads, creating a shape, a symbol, maybe a constellation, maybe a creature. No one explains. You just sit cross-legged and watch as it grows a spiral. Here, a line there, a pair of circles that might be eyes. People contribute without asking. They take beads off their necklaces from their pouches and gently lay them into the design. You hesitate. Then you reach for your chipped green glass bead, the one that's always felt a little too sharp on your skin, and you place it near the center of the spiral. It fits like it was waiting. There's something ancient about this act. Not religious, not formal, but primal. Like drawing on cave walls. Like telling the sky what lives in your heart. Historians still wonder whether these ground mosaics were for ritual teaching or simply shared beauty. But in this moment, it doesn't matter. It's quiet magic. You walk away lighter. By mid-morning, a traveler arrives. You spot him on the ridge first, a small figure with a large bundle strapped across his back. As he gets closer, you see the wear on his cloak, the dust on his boots, the necklace that clinks like a pouch of pebbles. His beard is tangled with beads. He's greeted with nods and shoulder clasps, offered water and a seat. He unwraps his bundle slowly, revealing a cloth lined with beads from far beyond your imagination, bright blue stones that glimmer like beetle shells, spiral carved shells you've never seen before, amber globs like melted honey. He speaks softly, sharing stories with each bead. This one from the coast, where the sea sings into caves. This from a volcano that once ate a village, then coughed this up. And this bead, he pauses, holds up something small, plain, almost dull. This one I found in the ashes of a burned-out camp. No one around. Just this. Still warm. The group leans in. You feel your necklace shift as you breathe. He doesn't sell the beads. Not exactly. He trades, but not for value. He trades for meaning. Someone offers a carved fox tooth in exchange for the beetle shell blue. Another offers a smooth stone with a hole worn naturally through it for the ash camp bead. You sit beside him, and for a long while you say nothing. Then you reach beneath your tunic and untie your swirl-painted bead, the one you made during the rain with the squirrel hairbrush. You hold it out. He looks at it, turns it in his fingers, then smiles. "I'll keep this," he says. It feels like thunder. In return, he hands you a bead, unlike any you've seen, clear, smoky, and flecked with something like stars. It feels cold at first, then warm, then yours. The moment passes. The circle breaks. He wraps up the cloth and moves on, already heading for the next horizon. By late afternoon, you wear the new bead at the center of your necklace. It clinks differently, sings a new song with each step. Someone notices. Nice trade, they say. You nod, but don't explain. Later, by the fire, someone asks you to tell a story. You begin with the painted bead. You talk about the rain, the awning, the clay. You mention the brush and the humming. You leave out the mistakes and the crooked lines. Or maybe you include them. Who knows? As you speak, you finger the smoky bead at your chest. You don't tell them what the traveler said. You don't have to. The story carries its own thunder. The fire burns low tonight, casting a sleepy amber glow that softens everyone's features, even the rough ones. You're wrapped in your furs, knees drawn close, the necklace heavy and comforting against your chest. The smoky bead lies warm above your heart, and the stories of the day still hum quietly in your bones. But you're not the only one lingering by the fire. An elder sits across from you. You don't know her name. No one really uses names much in this camp. But you know her beads. They stretch from her ears to her elbows, wound in loops and coils and braids. Some hang from her woven belt. Some are sewn into the seams of her tunic. Others are tied into her hair like punctuation marks. Tonight, She begins to speak. No invitation, no announcement, just words, soft and rhythmic, like footsteps on moss. You know, she says there was a time when beads weren't just pretty. They were rules. You tilt your head. She grins. Back when my grandmother's bones were still dancing, a bead could mean, "Don't speak to me," or "I just had a baby," or "I can guide you across the marsh for a price." She pauses to lift a large oval bead from her wrist carved with lines like sun rays. This one worn only during full moons, or else the sky gets offended. Someone nearby chuckles, but no one interrupts. She continues. In some places, if you wore 2 red beads and 1 black, it meant you were mourning. But flip the order, black, then red, and suddenly you were hunting. Confused a lot of people, that did. You smile. It sounds like folklore, but also like something people would do. Historians still argue, she adds, whether these bead codes were ever formalized, or if people just made them up and hoped others understood. Either way, beads talked. You just had to listen. The fire crackles, sending a burst of sparks spiraling into the night. For a second, they look like floating beads scattered across the dark. She sighs, resting a hand on the pile of furs beneath her. Young ones today, they don't listen to their necklaces. You glance at yours. Are you listening? Later that evening, a boy stands and holds up a string of mismatched beads, wooden ones carved with animal shapes, a few dull shells, and something that looks suspiciously like a melted glass fragment. He tells a story through them. "This one's when I got lost in the fog," he says, "and this is from the rock I tripped over. And this one's from the cave where I heard the ghost humming." He points to a black bead near the end. "I don't know where this one came from. I just had it one morning." People nod. No one questions it. You add that to your mental collection, beads that appear without explanation. Beads that choose you. You lie back on the ground again, the fur beneath you already warm. Overhead, the stars stretch from one horizon to the other, a long silver necklace the sky wears when it's feeling extravagant. Someone to your right starts humming a lullaby. You've heard it before, maybe from the woman with the moon bead, maybe from a mother whispering to her baby, maybe in a dream. You don't hum along, but your breath falls into the same rhythm. It's peaceful, which, considering where you're lying on ground that was once lava beneath stars that watched mammoths and saber-tooths, is pretty miraculous. You feel the beads at your chest again, each one holding heat from the fire from your skin, from the stories they've gathered. You think about which ones you'd trade, which ones you'd never let go. That one with the crack that looks like a river that stays. The shell with the chip on its edge. Maybe. The smoky bead. Not yet. Not ever. Maybe. Tomorrow the camp might move again. Or maybe it'll stay. Maybe you'll meet another traveler. Or find another bead. Or wake up with one beside your bed that you swear wasn't there the night before. Maybe you'll make another bead of your own, this time shaped like a question mark, just to see who asks what it means. You close your eyes, and in the quiet, you hear it. the music of beads shifting across the night, a soft chorus of bone and shell and stone, whispering the stories of those who've walked before, those who walked beside you, and those still to come. And just like that, you're asleep. You wake to the sound of someone laughing, not loud, not jarring, more like a chuckle carried on the wind as if the morning itself found something amusing. Blinking sleep from your eyes, you sit up and stretch the beads on your necklace, making soft sounds as they clink against one another. They're lighter this morning somehow, or maybe you're just getting used to the way they move with you. Either way, they feel less like decorations now and more like quiet companions. Breakfast is a slow affair, roots broth, a few leftover nuts. The camp feels unhurried. People move with the ease of those who know there's nowhere urgent to be. You watch a child stringing together small, oddly shaped pebbles with a loop of sinew. They're clearly not symmetrical, not polished, not even the same color, but the kid is serious, inspecting each one like it might hold a secret. Someone leans over and whispers, "That's how most traditions start. One odd decision at a time." You nod. It makes sense. Today's plan, if it could be called that, involves foraging to the east, past the dry creek bed, toward the edge of the woods. You join a loose group heading out, not because you're particularly hungry, but because there's always the chance of discovering something unexpected. The path winds through sun-dappled trees. Twigs snap underfoot. Birds call out in unfamiliar notes. And there, in a patch of damp earth, you spot it. A broken tooth, flat-ridged, likely from some long-gone grazer. Not exactly pretty, but the wear on it suggests age, story, maybe pain. You pocket it. Further along, you come across an old campfire, ring stones, blackened ash, half buried by time. Someone kneels and pulls out what looks like a bead, charred but intact. It's bone, you think, but what kind? No one can say. From the before time, someone offers, grinning. You laugh, but quietly, just in case. By midday, your pouch holds several odds and ends, feather tips, curled bark, something that might be the joint of a small bird. None are beads. Yet. You remember something the elder said last night? The first bead was probably an accident, a hole in a shell, a tooth with a crack. Somebody saw it, strung it, and decided it meant something. Historians still argue whether that first bead was truly decorative or carried some sacred meaning. But as you look at the random items in your pouch, you think maybe it doesn't matter. Meaning doesn't have to be old. It just has to feel real. Back at camp, the sun is beginning to dip. Fires are blooming. People are returning with bundles of greens, handfuls of mushrooms, even a few startled frogs. You sit near the fire and begin to clean the broken tooth you found earlier, scraping it gently with a bit of flint, rubbing it with damp moss. Slowly, a groove begins to show a place where you could pass a thread, maybe. Someone watches you, then reaches into their pouch and hands you a sliver of dried tendon, already softened and twisted into a long string. You nod in thanks. And so, sitting by the fire with smoke curling into the sky, you add the tooth to your necklace. It fits awkwardly, at first heavier than expected. But then it settles, sliding into place beside the smoky bead. They clink once softly, like a shared secret, and then fall silent. That night, as the stars begin their slow shimmer across the black, someone suggests a game. Not a loud one, not even one with rules, just a story game. Each person holds up a bead from their necklace and tells one sentence about where it came from or where they wish it had. You hear, "This one's from the river where my sister disappeared. This one is a dream I had. I carved it before breakfast. This one fell out of a hawk's nest. I waited all day to grab it." You hold up your new tooth bead. "This one, you say, came from the mouth of a creature that once hated the cold." People nod. No one asks more. That's the rule, apparently. One bead, one truth, or one almost truth. You like that. Later, you lie down and stare at the stars. Some are faint, some flicker. One blinks like it might fall. You wonder if long ago someone tried to catch one. Maybe they even did, and strung it onto a necklace, wore it for warmth or protection or bragging rights. Maybe that's what amber is, a fallen star someone claimed. The fire crackles beside you. Someone turns in their sleep. You feel the weight of your necklace again, familiar now, like the creak of a floorboard in your childhood home. It holds stories, yours, theirs, the world's. And tomorrow, it might hold more. The morning mist is slow to lift. It clings to the low grasses like it doesn't want to leave, wrapping the camp in a silvery hush. No one says much. Even the fire crackles quieter today, like it knows something is ending. You pack slowly. There's no bag, really. Just a bundle of fur, tied with twisted vines stuffed with little pieces of your time here. Some useful, some just comforting, a bit of dried root, a sharp flake of stone, a bead someone gave you last night while half asleep, muttering, "You'll know what it's for later." You slip it into your pouch without asking. Your necklace feels heavier this morning, not because of the beads, it's the memories they carry now. Each one a timestamp of a moment you lived, or nearly lived, or imagined. But in the rhythm of this life, imagined moments count too. You glance at the others. Some are already walking, the youngest ones, chasing each other down the foggy path, beads jangling like wind chimes. Others linger hugging, murmuring, making quick trades, a feather for a shell, a flint scraper for a tooth bead, shaped like a bird. You don't trade today. Instead, you walk to the edge of camp, just where the moss gets soft and the trees start to thin. And there, under a crooked tree with bark like wrinkled skin, you kneel. You take the oldest bead from your necklace, not your favorite, but the first, the one that started this whole strange string of moments. You hold it for a long time. Then you bury it, not deeply, just enough. You pat the dirt smooth and stand. The necklace feels a little lighter and your chest a little fuller. Not with sadness, though it's there too, but with space, the kind of space that invites something new to arrive. Historians still debate whether early humans buried their jewelry out of reverence or to hide it, or maybe as offerings to something bigger than themselves. Theories float like mist, never quite settling. You don't need a theory. You just needed to leave something behind. You turn to go, but before you step away, you whisper, "Tell the next person something good." Because someday, someone else might dig here and find it and wonder. The walk is quiet. No one fills it with chatter. The group moves like a loose thread, pulled through the forest, tugged by instinct, not urgency. Your hand touches your necklace as you walk. The smoky bead still glows faintly in the soft light. The tooth still tugs gently on its cord. You feel the slight pleasant itch of dried sinew on your skin, the faint thump of beads brushing bone with each step. The path curves. You walk into the trees, and behind you, buried and humming with old sunlight, your first bead waits for its next story. And now you're far from the camp, far from the mist and the fires, the trading circles and the bead braiders, far from the voices that once murmured around you in the dark, but not really alone, because pieces of them stay with you, dangling gently from your neck, nestled in the folds of memory, the soft curve of shell, the whisper of tooth against tooth, the weight of something small and sacred. As you walk deeper into the quiet, the path beneath you becomes softer, the moss thicker, the world muffled, your legs slow, your breath deepens. Every step becomes a little lighter, like the ground is rising to meet you. And in this hush, this late and lovely stillness, the stories you've carried begin to settle. They don't vanish. They just curl into sleep. The smoky bead is warm again, not from fire, just from remembering. You press your fingers against it once gently and let it go. The wind rustles the trees with all the gentleness of someone tucking in a blanket. Overhead, the stars return, blinking slowly awake. But your eyes don't need them now. You've seen enough light. You've worn stories. And now it's time to drift. So breathe out. Let the beads fall still. Let the past wrap around you like soft fur. And sleep, sleep, sleep.